Everybody, how are you guys? It's Monday morning. We're here in beautiful Glendale, California. It is time to start a new series of videos, meaning every week we talk about a different city. This week it's going to be Denver. And this video is just going to be a quick overview of the city. Probably a lot of it you know already, and then of course this week we'll get into the history, the beginnings of the city, the art, the architecture, the topography, the geography, the people, the neighborhoods. We get down into the nooks and crannies unlike any other travel or history video series. And when I say we, I mean me. So let's just talk in general terms, and that'll just kind of get us kicked off. Let's put our toe in the water. Denver was founded, well, let's back up. Denver was named after John Denver, the singer's great-grandfather, and who was also a singer. So if you're young, you may not be familiar with John Denver, the singer, from the 1970s. 1980s, 1970s. When did he die? But you may be familiar with the songs Rocky Mountain High and Take Me Home, West Virginia. So his great-grandfather founded the town of Denver. Now today, Denver has a population of about 750,000, making it about the 20th, 20th largest city in the country, or urban area in the country. But that's just the city. I don't know if that includes the surrounding areas. But the reason, and it's, if you've ever been to Denver, you know it's pretty close to the mountains. So Denver has really, I can think of it as two separate sections. The flat part and the foothills and the mountains. I guess that'd be three areas, but let's just call it the foothills and the mountains and then the flat part. Well, the city is right on the edge of the flat part as it butts into the foothills and the mountains. So if you were to drive from the east, you're driving over the flat part, you go through the city, still flat. As soon as you go through the city on the eastern edge of town, it starts to get hilly. Those are the foothills, and you can see the mountains right there. I mean, you can see them for a while, but nonetheless. And then within 10 miles, or not very far, you're deep in the mountains. So that's the reason that John Denver's great-grandfather, who was also named John Denver, settled the city there, was that they needed a nice level. He was also a musician, which I mentioned. The problem was that he came from Kentucky, which has a lot of hills. And in Kentucky, he was having a real difficulty keeping his music stands level. And he couldn't write the music, he couldn't play the music, because the music sheets kept falling off the stands. So he said to his wife, Mrs. J.D., he said, Miss J.D., let's head out toward the flat part of Denver right before it hits the hills. And she's like, whatever, let's go. She was adventurous, she was supportive, and they set out to find a place where they could have a level ground for their music stands, and also it was close to a place that was inspiring for their music. And gosh, if you've ever been to Denver, you know it's both those things. It's both flat and inspiring. And so there was nothing there. It just was a field. And they decided to create the city of Denver. And it didn't really grow that fast. It was just him and his wife, their kids, and a few relatives. And, you know, everywhere you go, there's going to be those relatives that just kind of hang on and come and they're like, oh, we're going to come visit you. And you're like, oh, you don't have to. And they're like, yeah, we're going to come visit you at your new place. And maybe it's a relative you don't want to see, But sure enough, there they are, and they're I mean, as right as rain. Old man John Denver had relatives showing up that he didn't necessarily invite, but they just figured they had a standing invitation because they're cousins. And anyway, so he's like, "Oh, I just grabbed this cabin over here and whatever." And so they had a little settlement going on there. Now, a lot of people ask me when I relay this story about the Indian population, because this was still in the early days, guys, and remember, it wasn't all that friendly all the time. But old man John Denver, he had the ability to make friends through music. And so what he'd do is, because he was so happy his music stands were level, he would just set to playing. And golly, unbelievable, man. These Indians would come in from off the plains, come in out of the mountains, and start dancing to the music and start singing the songs. And basically it was an early top 40. And eventually they knew the lyrics as well as John Denver did and his clan. And so, in other words, they all got along. After some initial distrust, they all got along. Now, there were a few skirmishes. I can't really tell the story without being honest. There were a few skirmishes. Some of the parties, a few of the Indians, and a few of the John Denver family got in a little fisticuffs. There's some words thrown back and forth, and I think they maybe had a few mini cocktails, and some fists were thrown. But the beauty is at that level, if you don't know, Denver is called the Mile High City because it is almost exactly a mile high in the air above sea level. Well, guys, the air is pretty thin at that level, so even though a fight broke out several times, they had so many cocktails, all right, that when they threw the punches, there was no energy behind it, and because of the thin air, they didn't have the lung capacity to really give it any oomph. So between the intoxication and the atmosphere, nothing really happened. Nobody got hurt, and the next day everybody forgot about it completely. So that is how the town began, and even to this day, it is a big music town. It's a very friendly town. You don't have a lot of the conflict that you have in cities like Los Angeles. In a city like Los Angeles, if two cars were to merge into the same lane from different lanes, like one goes to their right, the other goes to their left, and they realize the other guy is trying to occupy the space they are, the textbook move in Los Angeles is not to just move back into your lane and reassess. The textbook move is to go ahead and smash into the other car and assert dominance. So what you want to do is you don't back away. You turn your car into them and take that space by force. That's the rule of the highways in LA. Well, in Denver, they don't have any of that nonsense. Everybody gets along. They're friendly. The state has legal marijuana. So a lot of those factors work together to make it a peaceful, music-loving, friendly place that it is today. And it's so attractive now. With actually the real estate prices are rising, but they're still pretty low compared to the West Coast and the East Coast. So you've got people coming in from California, from Oregon, from points all over the globe to move to Denver and enjoy some reasonably, or let's just say, not as high real estate prices as where they're from, and then get that fresh air, the great music, the friendly vibe, and legal marijuana. Denver, of course, is the capital and the center of everything that happens in the great state of Colorado. Well, guys, that's just a quick snapshot of how it all began. We're going to get, like I said, into the city all week. I'm looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite places. And yeah, come on back.